in as I say 1899, it's a D2 that's more forward on the quality, and depending on what sort of quantity, either a controller or a engine. If you look carefully in the front end, you'll find the little bolts all the way around the floor box, so it will be possible for the purchaser required to actually make that traction engine into a steamroller given the appropriate part by detaching the floor box and putting all the floor box with cover steam tractor, also owned by Peter Green. That was built in 1918 towards the end of the First World War, and it was actually supplied to the Ministry of Munitions at that time. After the war, it came into the ownership of a Shellman in the Essex area. It registered in Essex in probably 1921 time, and Harrison, the Shellman people there, actually made it into a Shellman tractor for hauling a lighter load from fair to fair. It's fitted out with the obvious dynamo on the front and lighting on the inside, a compound machine, very economical from that point of view, and to make sure that his son's doing it correctly, Peter is sitting behind his son directing the operations. Part of the team, this one much later in the standstill, so that it was built in 1930. It's a very surprised by the team, and it was supplied to Ceylon in 1930. It's called E-frame after the name of the previous owner, which was E-frame Fleer. It's Fowler number 13881. It's got a winding drum under the boiler, horizontal winding drum wrapped around with wire rope, and we may well see sometime later, I don't know whether it's actually scheduled this afternoon or not, that they sometimes do a demonstration of hauling one across to the other across the arena using the wire rope. Following up from the Fowler large ploughing engine is a somewhat diminutive 6-ton Babcock and Wilcox steamroller. It's owned by took over the Lincoln firm of Clayton and Shuttleworth and continued to producing steamrollers, many of which were actually sold to the name of the firm on the side of this little 6-ton roller, Buncombe's of Highbridge in Somerset. They bought a large number of Clayton and Shuttleworth machines. They went away from Airlings, which they had in the first instance, mainly because they had a bit of machines, and turned to another manufacturer. That one, as I said, had been Clayton and Shuttleworth, and they continued with that one until they got no more necessity for steamrollers. With another Aveling and Porter, this one a piston valve belonging to Simon and Louise Gill from Ulsterborough Bridgeway. As it says on the awning side, it belonged originally to Kidderminster Borough Council. It was eventually became part of the Warwickshire fleet, and it's been here presented today, as I say, by Simon and Louise Gill from Ulsterborough Bridgeway. Another of Simon and Louise's machines is following on that. This used to be a Fowler steamroller in days gone by. It used to belong to a gentleman by the name of Harold Bonnet, who lived in Surrey, and Harold Bonnet, who's no longer with us, was the founder of the Steam Plough Club back in the early 1960s. But someone along the line has actually manufactured some more parts for it, and it's got a dynamo on the front and canopy lights, and therefore it looks as though it worked on the fairs, but it never did. Aveling and Porter built more steamrollers than all the other manufacturers in England together, and we have another example of their manufacture. 1916, I think, this one. Supplied new to Northallerton Urban District Council, and eventually in round about 1930 it became part of the North Riding County Council's fleet, in whose livery it is seen here today. It puzzled me for quite a long time, because in 1930 or thereabouts the County Council bought about 4 steamrollers from Aveling and Porter, and they were registered with lower numbers than VN 2370. But eventually, after quite a lot of research, I discovered that this particular one had been laid up for a while, put back into service after the delivery of the 4 that they bought earlier, and hence it's got a registration number out of sequence with the other ones. John Selby bought this Fowler Road locomotive, which is passing the commentary point at the moment, along with his father, and the business they ran in days gone by was A. Selby and Sons from Epworth in North Lincolnshire, and that's why it's got that name on the sign. John's driving the machine. It's a fine example of a Fowler Road locomotive, which I first saw in 1963 when it was taking part in a different ownership in Horbury, in the Horbury and Ossett Carnival at that time. The CT9092 is actually indicative of the fact that, like my steamroller that was registered in Casteven, Lincolnshire, this is 9092. It would have been registered some considerable time after mine, which was 1921 when that was registered, but this one belonged after the First World War to the firm of A.M. Cole, Sleaford in Lincolnshire, and hence that's why it's got a CT registration. We've now got another Aveling and Porter steamroller, the oldest machine on the rally field today, which was built in 1884, supplied new to Acton Borough Council, Acton Local Board, later Acton Borough Council, on the suburbs of London. Belongs to my son-in-law, Ian Caulfield, and my daughter Denise, who live in North Derbyshire. It's had extensive work carried out on it. Is actually the second oldest Aveling steamroller potentially that could be working today. I believe the other one, which is 2018, is actually off the road at the moment, and therefore Ian's at 2031, 36 days manufactured later, is actually the oldest operable steamroller now in the world. The engine just passing the commentary point belongs to David and his son, and it's a recent, not an original tractor made by Fosters of Lincoln. It's actually built in the year 2000 or thereabouts, because that was the road at that time. All the money to spend on something like that, but of course it is a machine which is Foster, as original Foster, days from 1904, and that is remanufactured or built, not a replica, it was remanufactured relatively recently, back on in use in the late 1990s, belonging again to David and James Redesdale, who live near Retford. The machine which has placed itself in front of me at the moment is a magnificent example of a Fowler Showman's engine. Again, that worked on the fairs, but it was supplied back in the day to the War Department. It finished up working for, and it was then sold to W. Cole, of Bristol, who turned it into a showman's engine, looking like it is today, and the Turner brothers now own it. Turner brothers live in North Yorkshire. The previous owner, who had it for a long time, was Robin Knox, and he lives in that wonderful place called Sunk Island, the other side of Hull, going towards the sea. The unique example driving past me at the moment is the only under-type Garrett wagon, owned by, don't you wave at me like that, owned by Mick Walters, who lives at Cleckheaton, been driven here yesterday, 50 or 60 miles, very speedy on the road, and it was manufactured in 1926. There are a couple of other Garrett wagons in the UK, but both of those are overtypes. One of them was re-imported from Canada. It was sold in the early preservation days to a collector, or two brothers who were collectors just outside Toronto, and eventually the brother's father passed on, one of the brothers passed on, and that particular Garrett wagon came back to the UK, and it's now in Scotland, restored again and in working order. There's another Garrett overtime wagon, Sandbach, and Ford has built a lot of steam wagons over a long period, competing with Sentinels in that respect. We don't have a Sentinel wagon here today. One was scheduled, but unfortunately the gentleman who was bringing it suffered a hernia, was suffering from a hernia, and he wasn't able to participate today, so the wagon concerned is owned in Scotland and it's gone back up there. But going back to the Fulton, which is just past the commentary point, that's a Fulton tractor. Fulton also built steam wagons with a load carrying capacity on the back of them, but the Fulton tractor on non-pneumatic tyres, on solid tyres, was a mainstay for some considerable time. It was at one time a tar spraying machine. It was supplied to the Midlothian County Council, the Lenway division, and it was used in Scotland for a long time. It was in the Glaswade district in Scotland, and it remained in Scotland for around about 18 years, unloved at the back of the yard until it was rescued for preservation. Took it on the back, and he's obviously had the usual problem, as steamroller drivers do. It shook off the hook and it got run over, and the bucket is now somewhat squashed. But we all laugh at people who do that, of course, because I've lost a number of oil cans in that same direction. They're not very usable once they've been squashed by a steamroller. Monty is owned, another Fowler steamroller is owned by Ian Judd, who lives in Lincolnshire. This particular one is unique on the rally fields today in that Ian rolls it about on the roads quite extensively, and he's had it rubber tired. Now that's something which is unusual these days, but it's becoming more prevalent in that it's easier for the roller itself as a mechanical item because it's no springs. It's also considerably easier on the roads of today if you're driving a roller long distances, in that the driver himself or herself, or themselves to be right, the driver is actually then sprung a little bit, and it gives him a better ride actually on the roads of today. It also means that the steamroller doesn't skid on the likes of grates, which are proud for the rang when you pull off the grate backwards, and I've actually experienced that on more than one occasion. We've now got another Fowler wheel locomotive owned by John Summersfield. It was, as the chemical sign says, it was owned originally by Robert Wynne, Polish contractors who worked from Cardiff. Sorry, beg your pardon, Newport in Monmouthshire. Recent acquisition by John from Cornwall, so it's been brought up north. It's not a long distance to be able to appear here. I first met John last year at Sheffield Steam, and he brought along the small Evening roller, which I recognised because I'd seen it previously in Australia, and the restoration convert that little Evening roller into this magnificent road locomotive. And he looked at me and said a word which I can't repeat here. Nonetheless, we have here powder rocks nose on that railroad to go to, so basically go to the same purpose. Trailers and things on the road used to use tractors of this nature to take chippings or road stones or those to try to work the road repair work, and the two railers there, and then have the stones put on the ground, load the chippings around the road into the road to continue the road maintenance while the tractor runs after the stone with a trailer on, or two trailers, and brought supply of the stuff from the quarry to the steamroller to continue with work. So Paris, I believe, has appeared on the rally field previously with another engine or two. Today he's bringing along another part of the road locomotive. This one goes back to 1914, just before the First World War. Before that time, steamrollers and otherwise had to be licensed before the All Road Racing 1921 Act, which meant that every motor vehicle, all the down roads, the swing. There was a major maritime disaster. The engine at that time was called Empress of Ireland, and because of this major problem, the owners at the time decided that was no longer an appropriate name for the machine. And the typical thing of Aveling is that Aveling's called the awnings. The other thing that Aveling did was they called the original machines, that thing at the front of which is the slope length, that was a funnel. Another British manufacturer, Garrett's at Leiston. This was built in 1910, belongs to Richard Hull. It's called Elizabeth, and if you look carefully you'll see the nameplate on the back of the canopy, very back of the canopy. It's been driven by an Aveling owner himself, Barry Wood, but we won't go into that at the moment. Important thing is, it's badged and everything else in maroon livery. It was originally supplied to Southend Corporation in 1910, and it was green. It was commandeered by the war people. We don't know. This one was moved. By that time, Southend had got themselves another steamroller, an Aveling of course, and this one was sold at auction, purchased by Cumberland County Council, and it's been with that ever since it went in, or before it went into preservation. It went into preservation up in the Carnforth area, and Richard bought it from the first or second owner in preservation. We now have a slightly different Aveling roller, and it's an Aveling Warford roller, manufactured by Aveling Warford at Grantham, owned by the Baines family, Andrew Baines. Not owned by the Baines family because it changed hands at some time around the time when Emma Baines married Mark Jacobs. Anyway, the situation with the roller is that it's different to most new rollers that you see today, in that it's got disc wheels. And the reason for that is that it was possibly able to fill the wheels with water or sand, and therefore make it into a larger size machine than it was originally supplied as. It was supplied to Baines at Potton in Hertfordshire. Baines at Potton were taken over or merged with Edison Plant and Equipment at that time, 1947, and it's in that livery, as it were, the Edison livery as you can see today. It's been followed by another recent Baines acquisition, spelled differently to Baines of Potto. This has got an I in it. That Andrew Baines has been able to purchase a machine that's been laid up for probably 40 or more years, and able to import a steam tractor almost in original condition. Having had some major work done on it recently, it's now in working order and brought here today for our enjoyment. Another Aveling importer roller follows that. This one was supplied new by Avelings in 1916 in the middle of the First World War. It went to Lichfield Corporation, and it's now owned by Laurie Fletcher and family and company, I'm told. Laurie Fletcher and company. Been driven around at the moment by Laurie who's steering, and I believe it's Eleanor that's actually on the regulator at the moment. Followed by another Fowler ploughing engine. This one owned by the Pancher brothers, that's Richard and Philip. Relatively recent acquisition, they bought the pair of them. This one is out in operation, the other is in the process of restoration and waiting to be finished. This one, unlike most Fowler ploughing engines, has been painted in maroon colour, but it's looking very pristine today, and it's a welcome addition to our fleet of engines here at Sheffield Steam today. The Fowler traction engine that's following it belongs to the gentleman with the fireman's the railman's hat by the name of Andrew Piglands. Somebody sometime sooner or later will undoubtedly buy our Andrew a tin of grasso, and that means he will have to polish the brass band, as it says, but he's not done that since it came back from Australia a few years ago. It was repatriated from Australia. It was built in 1908. It's an A4 traction engine, and it came back to the UK 10 or 15 years ago. Andrew's had it for quite a long time. He chose to put a band of rubber onto the original strakes, and if you look very carefully on the back of the tender where the registration number is, you will note that the back of the tender actually has got hinges on the bottom. It follows down to enable the Australians to put long lengths of wood in there, which was the full use back in the day in Australia. Sitting in front of me at the moment is James Ragsdale Garrett exited. So anyone who wants to come into the arena for 10 minutes or so, have a wander around, take photographs, please do as of now. Thank you very much indeed, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope you've learned a little bit more about the engines that you see before you at the moment.